Welcome back to Athletic Everyday, day number 139. I was a little bit of a dilemma about what to do for this actual workout because originally I was planning on this whole week being like just a max out week. So I was planning on actually tapering it down to like 3 sessions, maxing out 2 of them, and then one of the lower body sessions just being kind of just like a moderate intensity sprint session. But obviously the plan didn't work out, was where I wasn't able to max out. Well, I tried to max out my clean on Monday, but that didn't work out too well. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma about whether to like stop doing cleans for a little while and then just see if like fully recovering and stopping doing them for a while will allow me to then max them out again. Or to continue training full cleans again until I am able to, get a new 1RM, because, that was a big goal of mine. And I'm just thinking, like, if I'm not hitting my clean 1RM, then maybe I'm going to miss my back squat 1RM, Have I lost strength? I've lost a little bit of weight as of late. And maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit as well. I'm not sure. So thinking behind this workout was just to get something explosive in to start, and then I wanted to get in some barefoot front squats. The thinking behind doing barefoot is so that I can really start to feel the ground with my foot. One thing I notice a lot on my squats, and you guys may have noticed it too, when I push out of the hole or when I go in and out of that end range of motion, arse to grass position, I do tend to overpronate on my feet, especially on my right foot. You'll see that the sole of my shoe, especially my weightlifting shoes, but even when I do it in barefoot shoes, the outside edge of the heel, so the outside edge of the right heel, actually tends to lift up, which means that my arch is collapsing. Now, I don't have the highest arches in my feet, but I know for a fact that I do have an arch, and everyone does to a certain extent. And it's not necessarily how big your arch is, it's just how well that arch functions for your foot. And I know for a fact that if your foot is collapsing in a squat, then that is basically asking for knee valgus, and it's asking for your knees to cave in more than they should be. So if you watch carefully on a few of these reps, and you'll be able to see a lot better when I get up to, I think it's 80 kilos, and I decide to take my shoes off. These are barefoot shoes that you're watching me squatting here. They're Zero shoes, by the way, XERO. Would highly recommend getting some if you guys are looking for a barefoot brand that maybe aren't as expensive as Vivo Barefoot, but are also incredibly high value. Not a sponsor here, of course. My channel is too small to have sponsors, guys. But yeah, I would highly recommend them. They're very, very high quality, and I think they have like a 5,000 mile guarantee or something. Been doing lots of running, jumping, dunking in them, athletic stuff, and they seem to be holding up just fine. So the soles are good. Anyway, I digress. Even though these are barefoot shoes, I still find that my foot tends to pronate. Less so than in weightlifting shoes, but when you look at this next set here, when I go barefoot, you'll notice that, again, on some reps it still does pronate, but when I decide to think about gripping the ground with my big toe, especially on my right foot, really trying to squeeze the ground, you'll see that the arch doesn't collapse anywhere near as much as it does, and my right outer side of my heel, it doesn't collapse anywhere near as much. And I think that this could be a missing link for my squat because, if you think about it, the base of all movements when you're on the ground is your feet. And if your feet aren't effectively interacting with the floor in the right way, then that's obviously going to affect everything else up the chain. That's going to affect your ankles because your foot's in a pronated position, or it's in excessively or too much pronated position, which means you go into your arch, which means that that's going to affect your knee, and then it's also going to affect your hip. It's going to affect your lower back on that side. It's going to affect everything else up the chain. It could also affect things on the other side of the body because of that imbalance. So nothing ever really happens in a vacuum or in isolation in the body. Everything is connected. It's all one thing. It's not a bunch of different parts. Because it's all one thing, if one area isn't functioning optimally, then that isn't just going to happen in isolation. It's going to affect other areas. So my thinking behind doing these barefoot squats is trying to sort of get more balance between how both of my feet interact with the ground, trying to erase that knee valgus. And the overpronation. Again, it's not excessive knee valgus. I wouldn't say my knees ever go inside of my toes, but I think also this helps me to increase my leg drive. Who would have thought that not elevating my heels more would actually help me to increase the drive I have with my legs? So that was what I was trying to focus on in these last couple of sets here. Really focusing on trying to push my knees forwards out of that hole rather than letting my hips shoot back and turning it into that, what I guess you would call a good morning or a stereotypical stripper squat, where you really try and load up the hips. I'm a very hip dominant guy. I've got, a huge pair of cakes. My fucking ass is massive. It's purely because I'm very used to loading up my glutes and I'm very posterior chain dominant. I'm not very used to loading up my quads and pushing my knees forwards over my toes when I push out of the hole, especially in a squat. Primarily because I have excessively long femurs for my body type. and in relation to my body length. I also have a very long torso, so as a result, that's why my my glutes are so well developed, but my quads maybe aren't so much in relation. So I have very good hip drive, but my leg drive is not all there. Hence why the front squats barefoot may start to help to develop that leg drive a little bit more. And that should, in theory, also help to develop my clean a little bit. That was my thinking going into this workout. Also noticed a couple of comments on my previous videos, guys. Thank you for those, by the way, about people that have experience from doing barefoot squats and deadlifts. And just basically they said how they would never go back to doing them with weightlifting shoes. Now, eventually I'm going to do them again with weightlifting shoes, but I think for now, for the time being, all of the squats, even the back squats that I do, I'm just going to start doing them barefoot and see how that affects all other aspects of my athletic training. So yeah, that was like a interesting little epiphany that I had today. And I must say that those front squats, I only worked up to triples of 120. I've definitely done heavier than that before. My max is 140. But those triples, they felt fine. They felt pretty good, actually. Felt like I had a lot of control coming out the hole. Still a little bit of hip shift, backwards hip shift coming out the bottom position. But that's to be expected with long femurs. Anyway, that is pretty much it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.